Hi guys, this is Sarfraz from Aristotle Prep, and we are looking at question 101 from the OG13 Critical Reasoning chapter. So the stimulus says the irradiation of food kills bacteria and thus retards spoilage. So it gives you a benefit of irradiation. However, it also lowers the nutritional value of many foods. So then it also gives you a negative aspect of irradiation. So the first two sentences give you a positive aspect and a negative aspect of irradiation. For example, irradiation destroys a significant percentage of whatever vitamin B1 a food may contain. Okay, that's an example of a negative aspect of irradiation. Proponents of irradiation, proponents means supporters. Proponents of irradiation point out that irradiation is no worse in this respect than cooking. So supporters of irradiation are saying that in the aspect that irradiation destroys vitamin B1, it is as bad as cooking but no worse, which means cooking also destroys vitamin B1. However, this fact is either beside the point, since much irradiated food is eaten raw. So now the conclusion of the argument comes that the fact that cooking also destroys vitamin B1 is besides the point or irrelevant because most of the irradiated food is eaten raw. So cooking never comes into the picture. Or else misleading, since. So now be very careful. What goes into the blank has to be some information that shows that this fact is misleading. And which fact? The fact that the amount of vitamin B1 destroyed in cooking is the same as that destroyed in irradiation. Be careful, it says misleading, it does not say it is wrong, because people confuse the two terms. Misleading does not mean incorrect or inaccurate. Misleading means from that fact you cannot conclude what you have concluded. So something will go into the blank that will tell you that irradiation is not as bad as cooking, it could actually be worse than cooking. This is something you have to be very clear on, that the author of the argument or the person who's writing the argument is trying to come up with some negative aspect of irradiation that actually makes it worse than cooking. Very, very important to be clear on this. A lot of students get this part wrong. They think that either the author of the argument is indifferent or he is supporting irradiation, whereas he is against irradiation. He clearly says it is besides the point or it is misleading. So then he can't be supporting it. So now with that thought process, we will go to the options, and option A says, many of the proponents of irradiation are food distributors who gain from foods having a longer shelf life. But that does not explain why the data is misleading. Had it said the data is inaccurate, then A could have explained that these guys are lying. But it's not inaccurate, it is misleading. A does not explain why that data is misleading, because the fact stays, or the fact stands, that the amount of vitamin B1 being lost is the same in irradiation and also in cooking. So whether proponents are food distributors or not, it doesn't make any difference. B says, it is clear that killing bacteria that may be present on food is not the only effect that irradiation has. Absolutely unclear, because we don't know what other effect they're talking about and whether the other effect is a positive effect or a negative effect. We can't assume that it's a negative effect. It could also be a positive effect. So B can't be the answer because it's very unclear what it is saying. C says, cooking is usually the final step in preparing food for consumption, whereas irradiation serves to ensure a longer shelf life for perishable foods. Again, which of these processes happens at which step makes no difference to us. The fact is, it still doesn't explain why the data is misleading. So D says now, certain kinds of cooking are in fact even more destructive of B1 than irradiation is. This actually can never be the answer, because we know that the author of the argument is against irradiation. He is not against cooking. D is actually going against cooking. So D is immediately out. So whatever E says is your answer. And what does E say? It says for food that is both irradiated and cooked, the reduction of vitamin B1 associated with either process individually is compounded. So what it says is, while you are right in concluding that the amount of vitamin B1 lost in irradiation and cooking is the same, when you subject a food to both of these processes, the amount of B1 that is lost is actually doubled, compounded. First, you lose some vitamin B1 while irradiating the food, then you lose more B1 while cooking the food. And you see, the hint for you was also there in the conclusion of the argument, which said, however, this fact is either beside the point, since much irradiated food is eaten raw, so the raw food has already been covered in the conclusion. Now, what is left is the food which is irradiated but not eaten raw, it has to be cooked. Now, if it has to be cooked, there is no way you can eat it raw. Raw food has already been eliminated. So the food definitely has to be cooked, but it is up to you whether you irradiate it or not. And you shouldn't irradiate it, because if you irradiate it, then the amount of B1 you're losing will get doubled, will get compounded. So E gives you a negative aspect of irradiation, despite the fact standing that the amount of vitamin B1 lost is the same in both irradiation and cooking. It is the perfect answer that we were looking for, and that should be the answer to the question. It's a very high difficulty question if you ask me. Very few students get this one right. Students go with A, they at times go with C or even D, but hardly anybody goes with E. And the reason for that is, a lot of the times students are not clear on what exactly is the argument saying. Is it supporting irradiation? Is it against irradiation? But once you understand that, I think it becomes a little easier. Still a very difficult question. On a difficulty scale of 1 to 5, I would give this one a 4.5. Have a nice day.